Oh, I can't wait. Yang gang, what's up? How y'all been?
Hey.
I know this week has been crazy. The past few weeks has been crazy. Tuning in, Melanated Council Yang, we are coming back at you live with another episode, typically Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. If there's anything outside of that range, it's probably because we're doing something special. But tonight's episode is one of Toby's favorite. Toby, please introduce to us the topic of tonight.
Oh gosh, that's so much pressure. No, yes. Tonight we're talking about fraud. Well, we're talking about voter fraud, voter suppression, and sort of all these discrepancies around voting we hear about, oftentimes in very contentious terms. But basically, we wanted to talk about what people's experiences with have they actually seen or heard of cases that have been fraudulent with voting, and also have you had personal experiences with where you felt votes were being suppressed in your town, in your state? Because you hear these terms and it can be very politicized, obviously, where it gets just very polarized with how people feel about those issues. So we're like, let's just talk about some of our own personal experiences as well as what we've seen maybe in the news and just studies and research that's been done on what actually is going on. Is fraud happening on a large scale? Are people being suppressed on some crazy scale? So I figured, why not talk about it? The timing works well because we just had a major election, in case you happen to not be paying attention to the news recently. So we just had it, and we can actually see what happened this time around, especially with COVID, which kind of changed the game in general. So that's the topic.
Yes, and you've already got a comment saying that only Republicans try to cheat. And it's funny because you would think that Republicans would do the absolute most that they can to make sure that people are eligible to vote. But in this election, we've kind of seen the opposite. And so last week, what we've done was we sent out, tweeted out a question and had people respond. And we've gotten a number of responses, and with some of them having taking pictures of what's actually going on and letting us know, hey, this is what's going on in our city, in our state. There's signs that are up and it points to one direction, but when you go there to kind of check it out, it's not there, or it just leads you to a dead end. So we're going to talk about issues like that. We're going to talk about how policies or politicians on a state level have pretty much made it almost impossible for anybody that wanted to do mail-in ballots. The things that have been going into place to kind of make sure it doesn't happen. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. I'm gonna post this. I'm gonna blow this up because Trump is you're on to something. We're going to talk about that too, Trumpist. We're going to talk about that. Isn't it the fact that more voter turnout is bad for Republicans? Is that why they have to gerrymander? Gerrymandering, again, that's another topic in itself. So we're going to briefly touch on that one. And a lot of it does equate to voter suppression. It does equate to voter fraud, depending on how you look at it. But for gerrymandering, again, that's going to be a totally separate topic because of the fact that the ins and outs of it, it's something that everybody should know. And it should be something that needs to be discussed, as well as pretty much put on Front Street and let known that gerrymandering, it doesn't solve anything. It actually hurts you in the long run. So why end it? Why just go ahead and just end it, and let's do something that will cause more people to come out and vote and support you. Okay? So here we go. So last week, let me go pull it up so I can see what I'm talking about. last week, the question for the game that we proposed was, do you think voter suppression and or voter fraud took place, and why do you think so? And we've had numerous of people come out and say, yes, we believe it's happening and everything else, and why it should, and why it has been happening, and especially with what's going on with today's climate, with the last previous election, we want to answer those. And so, pretty much what I'm gonna do is let me find one. I'm gonna find one. So, District 12 at District 12 Kitty from Twitter, she mentioned it. She said, yes, there's been voter suppression. The drop-off locations being limited in Texas, mail being slow, felony laws created against protesters in states where felons can't vote. Some states require reasons other than COVID to do mail-in. She hasn't dug into the fraud much, but nothing seems, sketchy. And that's almost like the common theme we've been hearing ever since this is going on. And so we're pretty much going to bring it to the table, talk about it. And who wants to go first as far as kind of chiming in on that issue? Because I know here in Michigan, we had a separate issue which almost ties into it, but I'm not trying to steal all the talking time. Want to make sure you guys have some talking time, So,
I do want to speak on, like, I feel like overall there's definitely more voter suppression tactics as a compared to voter fraud. Voter fraud is like so minor, it's pretty much inconsequential. Not saying like, well, because of that, go ahead and do it. No, it's very difficult to do. Like, for example, Trump kept saying that mail-in ballots, cause a lot of voter fraud. But if you think about it, like how much work that would have to go into doing vote, because first of all, like after you like, let's say I'm like, let's say I live alone. And I'm like, okay, let me just pretend to be 900 people in my house, and with my address. So all these ballots come to me, and I'm 900 different people, and I have to do 900 different signatures of people who exist, who are registered to vote, and because I use the number 900 because like that's like a huge number that could actually possibly do some damage. Like realistically, it'd probably be like, oh no, like my spouse died, and I haven't, filled out the information for the death certificate, so his death isn't on file yet. So I'm going to vote in his stead. And I'm like, A, that's kind of creepy. B, that just seems to be like the only logical way of doing that. Posing fraud, being someone that you're not. I guess like in other accounts, it could be, if you have someone who's 18 and over who has a disability or something who can't do that, like, like autism or, any number of disabilities where, like the person can't fill it out. Like, for example, like my brother has autism and he can't write his name. So he doesn't have a signature or anything, but he does have like a state ID. But like, it's just a very difficult thing to like be able to pull off. And usually like those cases of like voter fraud do get found. And like they get they get found out. As opposed for voter suppression, like what happened with my state in Florida, in 2018, we voted to let ex-felons get their rights to vote. after, serving their sentence. So that was about 1.4 million people. However, that same year, our governor, Ron DeSantis, was elected, and he decided to suppress that with, they cannot get their right to vote until they pay off their court fees. So, people equated that to essentially a poll tax. And if you think about it, that's just like, that sort of is, if you think about it, because like, it's like, okay, so if somebody's too poor to pay off their court fees, then they can't vote. Like, that makes no sense. Like, that's very hurtful, because like, it's also hella difficult to get a job after, when you have a felony conviction. So that's one strike against you already with, having trouble, earning money and reacclimating back to society. Then number two, it's like, oh, well, without money, you can't pay your court fees. And some of them, sometimes the court fees are really, really high. And then, you can't, earn your right to vote again. I guess it goes back to like the debate, is voting a right or a privilege? And that just seems to be like, like sort of the argument of this country in a way. But
right.
Yeah. So that's like a suppression tactic is what I was getting at.
Yeah, we got you. We got you, Al.
Yeah,
got you. Toby?
So I saw, so I'm looking at the question right now too. Or it was more of like a few things that were mentioned. The drop-off locations. Yeah, so the one for Texas, that was kind of crazy that they made it so you can only have one drop-off per
county.
Per county, there it is. And I'm like, wait a second. Houston is in Harris County. So that right there, I was like, are you serious? Are you making it so the entirety of Houston, possibly Katy and any Sugarland or whatever the surrounding places are they all in the freaking, like, if they're all in the same county, it's like, are you really making everyone same county drop off in the one? I mean, sure, you can mail it, but because of the just nonsense with the post office and with COVID overall, people could expect delays. And Texas is definitely not a state where you're going to be able to count ballots that come after the date. So people want to drop off their ballots. I don't even know. I think early voting was a thing. That was why we saw those record numbers.
Yeah.
I think that's actually part of why we saw the record numbers, was people just said, you know what, I'm just standing in line and bear through it. So when you do drop off and you create only like one per county or whatever nonsense, that definitely is a way to limit. It's just like, why are you making things less accessible? It should be as accessible as possible, really, as well as the mail being slowed, of course, it was a problem. And like whether it was happening, I mean, it should have been a priority to funded it. I mean, even outside of mail-in votes, people need prescription drugs and other things that aren't maybe always coming on priority mail or whatever. So it just didn't make sense to like let that. There was like, I forget how many votes, but some thousands, I'm pretty sure, or was it hundreds, that was it in Georgia? There was some found that the post, I think it was nationwide, the post office found some ballots. Right, there's a lawsuit where the post office had to basically find these ballots that were lost by election day, and they blew through the court order. They just ignored it and were like, well, we already have our route and our itinerary of what we needed to deliver this day. So we can't go back and find the ballots that were lost conveniently, right? So if that was like taken seriously as like, this is like a national possible emergency, like basically if you really took it seriously, like a lot of them are crying fraud on, like, on the Trump campaign and all this stuff. But like, that actually is a problem to like have 10,000 plus ballots lost. And like, if you really had cared so much, it would have been like, yes, I as president make sure, this is a national issue. This needs to be 100%, funded and taken care of, but it wasn't. And so that definitely was the issue with the slowing down of the mail, and that was avoidable. The felony laws, yeah. I mean, Florida is so interesting. I don't really know, because the margin was not tiny. Gabby, good to see you here. It's my friend. yes,
Good
I
point.
want to say, yeah, it was a hot mess. Thank you for bringing that up, and it was just like everything that I wouldn't say everything that could go wrong did go wrong, because it was actually pretty like eventless. Like as nightmarish as it could have been, there's actually quite a lot of things that didn't go wrong. Right, a lot of people who were like, I want to say the ACLU, the um different like NAACP, different advocacy groups were like looking like, is there going to be something go wrong? And they were kind of bored. They were like, actually, there's not really a lot of fraud or disenfranchisement and crazy things that typically happen. Like machines glitch,
Mhm.
things happen, but they were fixable. And thankfully, the states that had issues extended like an hour for some of their polling places. So I think that a lot of states were pretty good with how they ran their things. Even Georgia, because Georgia, it was a hot mess. I'm sorry if you're from Georgia, but Georgia was a hot mess in the primary, the presidential primary, as well as um the other primary, I guess the state primary. Like basically there was so many problems with long lines and like polling places and understaffing. But surprisingly for the actual election, for November 3rd, a lot of those problems either were kind of fixed or people just bared through them because they were
Yeah, I heard that they got like new new voting machines
okay.
in Georgia. I was like, holy shit, I didn't know you could do that. I thought you just had to deal with the old
You didn't know you could do that.
thing that is just always there, and we just have to trust it.
Yeah. I mean, and so I think that
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who really did try their best to go around the issues that existed, but like,
Mhm.
and yeah, some states. Yeah, the other thing that Katie mentioned was some states requiring reasons other than COVID to do mail-in, and it's like, come on now, like we all know dang well that we're in a pandemic, and like people are rightfully worried. And then of course, it's just I'm hoping that things become more like people kind of push past a lot of these things and people see it for what it is, and like common sense and the science. And I think most things would point towards expanding voting, making it in a way that it still is safe and secure. Because the election workers, I mean, they're very well trained. Like,
Yeah.
it is not easy. Like I say, it's like a James Bond type thing. Like what people are thinking is going to happen for fraud is like a James Bond or name whatever movie, like Ocean's 11 type heist. Like this is not actually happening in real life, where people are trying to like hack
Break
every
in.
single point of, from the mail to the facilities to like the lines to the, I mean, you have poll watchers inside, you have certification procedures of like the provisional and mail-in ballots. I mean, that's why it was taking so freaking long. Someone said that in the comments and on Twitter, but that's why it takes so long, because you have to check the signatures, you have to check the watermark, you have to check all these things, and it's very hard to somehow throw this many votes in just the right direction. And I haven't even got into like the specific theories that people are coming up with for this election, because that's gonna come later. Let's
Oh
let's
yeah.
let's we
Oh
did a
yeah.
little round table, so let's let's open up the next
Yeah.
I did want to mention, like what doesn't make sense is it like how Trump was losing votes, but then like Republican seats and from the House and stuff were still like, winning. So it's like it's all on the same ballot. So like if
Correct.
like so it's like, people were probably like very for the Republican Party, but just very against Trump, which exists. There's a lot of people like that. And that's fine, that's
Yes.
democracy for you. It's just like, like in sports when
Yes.
you want to like grade out a particular player. Like that doesn't mean you hate your team. It just means you hate that player.
Right. Of course. Of course. And to add to it, that's why it's called having a split ticket, meaning that yes, you can vote for whoever you want to. It doesn't always have to be a Democrat or a Republican. You can vote for whoever,
Right.
and if it just so happens that Joe Biden is on the same ticket as Donald Trump, more people are going to say, well, Trump, you suck. I don't like you. I don't like what you've been doing. I'm voting for Joe Biden. Cool. Said and done. So, sir, there is no, well, how come I'm losing votes? People just didn't like you enough to vote you in for another term. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. I mean, probably people in your own Republican Party probably voted against you. I mean, that could happen too as well. They may not come out and say it, but at the same time, they're like, well, you know what? I'm still hold true to my Republicanism and everything else, but Trump got to go. Like, Trump has to go.
I'm sure there are people who are like, blue check mark officials who are like saying like, oh, it was voter fraud, blah, 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 but voted for Biden. I'm sure that happened.
Yeah, but of course.
It's so funny to think that, like, I remember someone was like, Melania voted for Biden.
Possibly.
I mean, like,
want to be, a first lady.
No, but like, it
period. I don't, because actions speak louder than words, and we've seen a lot of this happening. Trying to grab the hand, like, nah. I think after this election, we gonna see a show for real, a reality show like no other. You won't be able to believe it. You won't be able to believe it.
Which I think he's more suited for, honestly. Like if he's like, it'd be better if he just wasn't in politics. Like, I think it'd just be better if he like really just transitioned people. Just, it's like, hey, everybody, watch this show where I'm, I don't know, just talking about other celebrities and other TV shows and politics occasionally.
Yeah, so, and that's
70 million views. That'd be great.
Oh, so I mean, the future of Trump is definitely something people will be talking about. And that will be an aside, but like, this man's not going anywhere. I think he'll either be doing what he did during the Obama years and just live tweet and play by play the Biden administration, or he's gonna rally people, try to get candidates in 2022, try to basically compete with Fox News and any other network to be like a big, he's not going anywhere. It's actually going to be kind of a mess because he got more votes than last time. So he's actually getting quite a bigger following. And there's going to be a lot of people who just are not going to accept sort of the results that happen here. Even now, people are saying the media doesn't call. Some people were like, I don't remember in the Constitution where the media decides who the president is, even though the media literally called Trump as president in 2016, and then Hillary conceded. So typically, that's how that works. The media does a projection, and then the president concedes. And of course, that's not going to happen this time. But so I'm just waiting for these votes. Like, it's part 2 of last week. Less tension, but still waiting. Like, please, just let every vote get counted in every state, because I'm kind of tired of this. Everyone's tired of it. Literally, I saw an article, and this again is an aside, but the Office of Transitions can't even like start giving Biden access to federal resources. And like, there's a small, not known office that is in charge of sort of the transitions and these things. And that person has said nothing basically about who the president is, because I guess they don't want to get into this partisan warfare. But so it's going to be a bit of a hot mess, but hopefully it gets resolved with everything. But in terms of, which I guess kind of brings to like some of these reason why people aren't having trust in the system. Why are people not, like, what are the things that seem fraudulent? I mean, I guess one is like a general question of what are sort of the examples of voter fraud that people have heard of, and what are things in this specific election that basically people have been talking about. And we can kind of reference the news for that, when we kind of heard a lot about some incidents and Trump protesters who are showing up to polling places in Detroit, Philly, and other places. But what are some examples of, I mean, I have it, but I don't want to go first. I was just going to say, hey, Miss Carter. So, yeah, I just had to. Now, but anyone wants to talk about fraud and like what either fraud that you've literally heard about, which isn't usually a thing, or fraud that people have alleged, and what are some of the common examples of it, and how credible do you think those examples are?
Well, I'll take a whack at. I'll take a whack at this one, because this one actually hits home. So, you guys remember about a couple weeks ago where a 118-year-old man had voted in the state of Michigan. You guys remember hearing that? Okay.
Maybe.
So it was either 2 weeks ago or it's fairly new, and it was exploded. And basically what it said was this, that somebody somehow got a hold of this man's ballot, signed it, sent it in to the state counted it and everything else. Okay. So me being me, I did some extra research into it and I posted my thread. And probably like a few days after, somebody else basically did the same thing that I did, and basically was like breaking down all the theories of the fraud. And he went more so technical into it. I was more so like, listen, this is what happens in Michigan, and a lot of things are done at the state house and the state senate type of ordeal. This man said, we're going to take that, we're going to dig it deeper. So anyways, what he said was this, was what actually happens is, if it was somebody who has the exact same name, probably born on the exact same date, which it happens, but because of the fact that the databases here in Michigan are not upkept the right way, that they need to get redone and need to get updated. And as far as entering a birthday goes, dude could have been 18, but they put the birthday as far as the individual goes 1/1, 1900 or 1/1 whatever, just to kind of keep the birth date in there. And so what it does is it pretty much acts like a little tracking system. So because of the fact that it could have possibly been an 18-year-old who this was his first time voting, that his ballot may have been spoiled. Now, I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of harsh, because like, how in the world is somebody gonna get a ballot, and especially if the county is in Detroit, Wayne County, like how in the world that's gonna happen, unless somebody was just desperate to get a vote and go into the Secretary of State, find up all the voters that voted within the past X amount of times and got their information. And again, that in itself is risking fraud, period. So not only do you talk about voting fraud, but now you're talking about mail fraud and all this other stuff. So you open up a whole can of worms for nothing. And it happens. And so guy went on, he said that's not possible. That of course this 118-year-old man voted. It's like, it's not possible. It's not. Common sense will let you know that somebody is probably related to that person, has the same name, same first name, same last name. Birthday may be a little off, but still they wouldn't go ahead and vote. And if it was just so happens to be this person's first time voting, you just discouraged a whole generation from voting because of the fact you thought what he did or what she did was fraudulent. And I agree with that. Totally agree with that. What makes it sickening is this. The state capital, Lansing, Michigan, the House and the Senate is controlled by Republicans. It's controlled by Republicans. And they've done everything humanistically possible to try and debunk mail-in ballots from the get-go. They tried it. They've tried it. They've tried it. And it's sickening because it's like when the primaries came around, my mail-in ballot came in literally a day after the state primary came in. And so I looked at it, ripped it up, like, okay, whatever. And so, yeah, I had to, because when I went to the polling place, the lady's like, well, did you get your mail? She said, I see that you're registered as a mail-in ballot. Did you get it? I was like, no. I have not. I'm still waiting on it. Am I still able to vote? It's like, well, yeah, all you got to do is just sign off the affidavit saying you didn't get your ballot. And then if it comes in, it gets spoiled and everything else. In my back of my mind, I'm like, well, no, duh, because it's not going to get counted anyways if I got it because it's too late.
Right.
You get it after the day. It's like, oh, I have it. I got it. Yeah.
Like I know my rights and everything else, but I'm not that dumb to go ahead and say like, oh, well, I'm just gonna wait till my ballot comes in and then mail it in. Like, no, I'll just go and do what I got to do. But I'm thankful that my ballot came in early enough to the point where I was able to kind of look at it, talk to the people and meet people and everything else. But even still, because of the fact that the Michigan Republicans, yes, I'm calling y'all out, because of the Michigan Republicans, they're not working for the best interests of their people, that they're more so worried about themselves. They've done everything to undermine our voice. They've done everything to undermine this whole election. And to be and to be quite honest, it's probably the first time in this state's history where a lot of people came out to vote. A lot of people, probably more than the 2016 election. A lot more people, especially in the Detroit area, the Grand Rapids area, the Flint area, Saginaw area, Muskegon area. Both of those cities, all those cities that I just named, are heavily populated with people of color. So blacks, Hispanics, this, that, and the third. You name it. That's their go-to, and for them to be able to go ahead and do what they had to do, vote early, vote by mail, it's like, why not? Why not do it? Why not take advantage of this opportunity? Because of the fact that we may not have it again. But then again, I love Gretchen. Oh, I love her. She's going to hopefully put into place that it stays, and hopefully we get enough representation on the state house, and the state senate to allow this to be the typical norm. If Colorado has done it for X amount of years and there's been no hiccups, why not should every state do it and get on board? That's my rant.
Sheesh, I have to look more into that 100-something 18-year-old man, because it sounds vaguely familiar, but
yeah.
I remember just hearing something in some state where it said like the oldest person, someone older than the oldest man alive in the country, tried to vote. And again, I didn't look at the details, so I didn't know if it was like a clerical error or if it was actually, did someone literally take someone's ballot and try. But like you said, it's a lot of effort. Yeah. I can tell you're trying not to laugh too, because it's so absurd to think about it. It's like, wait, what?
Hey, the thing is, like, it's possible. I'm not going to sit here and like laugh and be like, that'll never happen. But like, it's just very difficult. Like, because like they already make it difficult for people to like vote anyway with the suppression tactics. It's like, okay, so what should I do? Go and like, stand in line for hours, or find like, and then vote, or I don't know, find a person who's dead or who hasn't voted in a long time and then mail in their ballot. Like what do you want? I don't know. I'm just kind of it's like, I don't know. Like it's possible, but it's like, it's just very unlikely. It's very hard. And like, the numbers that do come up as like fraudulent, they tend to find them, and like B, like even the numbers that they do find, it's like so small. It would be like 17, like in like South Carolina, or like 23 in like New York or something. And it's like, what is that gonna do? It could probably like flip a very, very tiny seat. Not shouldn't say like a tiny, like an area, like a small populous area. That's possible, but like still,
Yeah.
it's still difficult because it's like, it's a small populated area, and then to find like 23 people and then like forge their signature, like I don't know, like it's just a very difficult thing to do.
It's
Like,
a very risky thing to do. I mean,
exactly. Yeah,
It's you go to fines, jail, and it's like, is that worth it? Because you hope to get what? Like you said, 900, but of course that was like a huge number. But like even if you were gonna like take 5, like you're really trying to flip with 5. I mean, how like it doesn't even make sense. Like trying to go to that effort to like
exactly.
pad. I mean, is this like a coordinated thing where you and your friends are each gonna find 3 people and 3 people from the graveyard? It just doesn't make sense. Like, what are
Like 9? Like what like,
Yeah.
like what are we trying to do here?
oh gosh,
agreed.
and like,
Agreed.
yeah, I mean,
Agreed. Go ahead, Toby.
yeah, and I guess the things that I had heard for at least, so I mean, fraud, man. There's like, I know I haven't really heard much like in previous cycles because I wasn't really paying attention anyway in many previous years, but I know in 2016, sort of what Trump claimed was there were 3 million extra votes from really illegal immigrants voting. That was his thing. So undocumented immigrants voting, no evidence. I think what they did was they tried taking some small sample that they found of maybe some who had attempted or that they had thought had voted, and what they ended up doing was like extrapolating that out across the whole state of California because that's what we do with data, I guess. And that's not actually true. Like you didn't have a 3 million people vote who couldn't vote. I mean, the whole point is like you're supposed to see who's actually eligible to vote. And it's funny what you mentioned, Ron. Like you're supposed to be able to check like the address too. So even if 100-something-year-old person voted, did they check the address? Did they check like? There's a bunch of things you're supposed to be able to check so that someone can and can't vote. Like provisional votes are more scrutinized, where it's like, which I don't even fully understand the provisional ballots, but I kind of understand that it's like you show up and I guess you have something that you fill out and turn in later or whatever. And these things get scrutinized where you possibly could have more fraud or looked at higher. And then if you're, of course, in person, that's like the easiest thing to check. You don't even necessarily need an ID, which we'll have to talk about the voter ID as well.
Yeah.
But so the idea of fraud is just like something that hasn't happened really much. In 2016 election, 3 million illegal immigrants voted, which never happened. 2 actual cases of fraud, or 4 maybe, happened in 2016. One woman voted twice for Trump because she didn't trust that it happened correctly the first time. Oh, so surprise, surprise.
Yeah,
Every time I'm on Twitter and I see something about voter fraud, and I'm sorry, I'm not here to bash my Republican or conservative friends or whoever's watching this, but it's always a Republican somewhere, some operative that does something fine and goes to jail. Missouri or Kansas, where there was just a Senate race, I believe actually the guy who ran, the Republican, it was him or at least someone else in the primary. I think it was him because I believe he literally got charged with electoral fraud of some kind. Like he was registered in one part of Kansas, but then he ended up voting in another one. And so he ended up voting either out of district or he ended up voting twice. I think it was the same guy who literally just won the election, which is a shame. And then I want to say in another state, there was another issue that happened where it's just like, I think in North Carolina, there was a pastor named Mark Harris, who I think there was a special election in like 2017 or 2018. I think it was 2017. There was a special election, North Carolina. The pastor only won by like 400 votes. And then after he won, it was discovered that it turns out that one of his campaign managers was doing like this absentee ballot collecting and was doing like fraud. So that was like ballot fraud, because voter fraud is like you as a voter go ahead and does something illegal to vote, which is very hard. Ballot fraud is like electioneering, where the actual sort of election workers or someone is able to sort of illegally vote for a lot of people or rig the system. So this Republican operative ended up getting charged, went to jail, I'm pretty sure, because he collected a bunch of absentee ballots from people, which you're not supposed to do. And I guess he just filled them out. I don't really know exactly what he did, but he was able to somehow like maybe toss out Democratic votes. So that election got invalidated. 2017 election never happened. So they had to have a redo in 2018. Like the pastor himself, he didn't actually get charged. His son actually testified against him in court. It was kind of sad because the pastor was like crying in court. The son was testifying against him, saying, "Dad, you knew this guy was shady and you hired him anyway." So it was kind of like a bit like an actual sad situation. And I don't think he was malicious. It was just that happened though, and it happened on the Republican side. And then this stuff just happens and happens and happens. But then they keep claiming that fraud is like a Democratic scheme, and it's like you could have fraud on the Democratic side. Any regular person could vote or could, do something fraudulent, but it's just like it's not something that happens a lot. And when you do see these incidents, it's only one party that seems to really be doing it. In certain places anyway. So
Comment there.
Oh yes. Yes. Everything is local and state ran. That was just the whole thing about this current election where Trump and his people are crying because everything is run by the states. So you can't have some national effort. I mean, in fact, we're already seeing a lot of energy go into certain states. Every secretary of state basically is being sued from Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia. The Republican secretary of state, if y'all saw, the Georgia's governor, first it was the two Senate candidates who are going to the runoff said you should resign, and then the governor said you should resign, or he at least backed up the Senate candidates, and the vice or lieutenant governor said there was no fraud as far as I can see.
Yeah.
And it's just like, holy crap. So at this point, we're just like we have no trust in this system. The fraud that could happen is like so minuscule. In fact, I meant to look this up earlier, but there's a percentage. It's something along the lines of 0.000. It's not a lot, and I wish I had found like the study beforehand, but the actual percentage is like 0.0003%. So that's 3 zeros, 3%, and between 0.0025, which is like almost a fourth of like 1/100th of a percent or something. It's like it's just not real. It's not something that can influence in any kind of way. And I actually found a really interesting study that happened some years ago. Would have been great if I pulled it up before, because what I saw was that apparently. So I'll finish this thought, is that the voter fraud is not seen a lot. Let me see what she said here. A bit shameful because I don't know as much. Yeah. So this was a big one. This is more on the voter suppression side, and that's exactly right. A lot of people were worried about militias and armed people trying to really suppress. It turns out that even in a lot of the states where people thought this might have happened, like Michigan and others, where people were sort of like, I think even Virginia, I mean, there's been some people like have been trying to rebel against the recent gun control acts. So I think there was some talk there maybe, because they actually talked about kidnapping the Virginia governor shortly after the plot happened to try to get the Michigan governor. So Virginia was another one where they could have attempted, because Virginia could have been emboldened and been like, wow, but thankfully these issues didn't happen. There weren't these informal poll watchers. In fact, actually Pennsylvania, I saw a clip of the guy that said, he basically was like, if you think you're gonna like come in dressed as G.I. Joe, you're not gonna, because he's like, the militia and the Constitution, this is not what this is. If you're gonna come here dressed as G.I. Joe and think you're gonna do something, we have something. He actually said to Trump, I have something for you, I think on Twitter. And there was an interview on like MSNBC or something where I think it was the Pennsylvania Attorney General, was basically like, what I have for you is a pair of handcuffs and a cell if you think you're going to interfere. I don't care if you're the president. I don't care if you're a militia and you want to dress up in military outfits. Like, that's not happening. You're just not going to be like a poll watcher with guns around regular people. Like, so thankfully a lot of states were like, like, this is not happening. We're not tolerating the tomfoolery. I mean, is it your right? But like, there's already things put in place. There's security. You already have systems to help crack down on the fraud or whatever. So it's not necessary to like be a self-appointed militiaman, looking for suspicious people, whatever that's supposed to mean.
Or whatever it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, and like someone who this person's trying to drop off a ballot and their insert thing here, so maybe I better go wave my like. It's just like, what are we really doing? So, um, the interesting thing about voter, and I wanted to do a little bit of a segue, was voter ID. So that was part of what I had been interested in was the concept of the voter ID and how people have. So this is actually part of why I was interested in the voter fraud suppression topic, because people talk about voter ID and how it's a tactic for voter suppression. Oftentimes, Democrats saying that, and all Republicans and conservatives will say, without ID, you could commit fraud. Now, the percentages are out. Fraud doesn't happen very often. But I have seen some videos push back on the idea that voter ID is a form of suppression, because one of them was someone, okay, this was a little more anecdotal, but they went through New York City interviewing people, basically saying like, do you know where to find an ID? First they interviewed like these mostly white liberals, asking like, how do you feel about voter ID laws? And they were like, they're racist. And they're like, why? And like, well, black people just don't typically know where to go get their IDs. And typically they might not have access to the resources and all this. And it did sound pretty bad. And then like they ended up asking a bunch of black people in New York City, and they're like, where's the DMV? Or like, where do you get your ID? And they're like, oh yeah, fourth and whatever. Like, yeah, it's right there. He's like, do you have an ID? And he's like, of course. To the people, you don't have an ID? Like, obviously. And it's like they were trying to show the contrast that like the only people who think that black people are suppressed by voter ID are like white liberals. Now, there definitely are cases where there have been like suspect ID requirements. Like I think in Texas, they use gun licenses as IDs, but they don't necessarily use student college licenses. They don't use other licenses that might be more favorable to Democrats. And of course, Democrats and liberals can own guns. Many do.
I would say it's Democrats. It's more so people of color, where like, not saying like people of color don't have gun licenses, but like, for like university students, for example, like they're probably going to be younger and like, more like ethnically diverse. I looked it up too, and it was like employee photo IDs. I feel like that's especially, more targeted towards people of color if they work at like, let's say Walmart or, like retail places where it's like has like your name and your photo, or or like be like a worker in like in a government building or something, you have like your ID. So if that doesn't work, and I feel like that could also like they might feel like that would suppress, like definitely people of color too, especially like in Texas, they'll be like, well, the the Spanish janitor lady who doesn't have her, who's not an American, she might come in here and use that as a way to vote. For example, even though that wouldn't really be the case. But yeah, like I didn't know what the ID thing was either, but like seeing it like that, I could see that. And also like I saw that like it was like it says it here, like 7% of white Americans lack driver's licenses, for example, compared to 10% of Latinos and 21% of African Americans. So like when they know how to use like the numbers against you, they will definitely use that. Like it's the exact same tactic as like the one drop-off box in Texas. Like they know damn well that there's mostly like people of color, black people in like Harris County. Which I heard that if Harris County was like its own state, it'd be like the 25th biggest state.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, yeah, like I think that's like I read that. But of course, like don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it was like the 25th biggest state, which is insane. So it's like you're pretty much suppressing a state if you just like imagine like I don't know, like Wyoming or something had just one drop-off box.
Yeah.
Like,
that would create
Utah just had one.
Yeah.
Like that's the only place. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's insanity.
Yeah, then nobody would want to vote because it's like, yeah, I'm not going to go all the way over there, wherever the hell that is, and then wait in line because everybody in the whole state has to go to this one place.
Yeah, and actually, Gabby's comment, the last one.
Yes. She gets the
I
reasoning
agree.
for voter ID requirements. Also think that the standard there needs to be extremely accessible and free ID available to all citizens. And this is true. This is true. You make a very absolute point. And I'm gonna use me as an example. When I went to go vote for in the primary,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, okay, nothing about it. The lady actually, like, oh, you have a ID. I'm like, why would you need my ID for? I have my voter ID card right here. It has my name, has my address on there. I live literally right down the street from the polling center. I'm not going to lie about that. And so, like, well, you need your ID to vote. And then immediately, I'm like, that's fishy. So I'm like, okay, didn't say anything about it. So, in her mind, it's like, oh, okay, you know what precinct you're in? Like, yep, precinct 1. I know, I just need to go vote. That's all. So, did that, went and I talked to Amy East, her campaign manager. Me and him had a conversation, and he was saying that yeah, you do realize that was a form of suppression, right? I'm like, yeah, I kind of did because of the fact that it was really weird and really sketchy. And it's like, I already had my voter ID out. And he's like, but then again, you also know that you really don't need an ID to go vote. It's your right. You can go vote. What did he need to do? Check to see if you live at such addresses. Like, come on, dude. Dude, it's the 21st century. Like, if anything, you should actually report that due to the fact that more and more cases are hitting Black people more so than white people. And if they don't have a collection of this going on, they're going to still continue to do it. And so, and I did. I called him. I called the hotline, and there you go. There you go, Toby.
That's my sister.
Aww.
There you
That's
go.
so cute.
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you, Melissa, for tuning in.
There you go. And so I called and made my case and everything else. But during this topic and talking about it, it actually is very hurtful that the tactics that's been played years ago are still being played now. And it's like, when is it really going to end? But it also ties into the political science class that I'm taking right now in college. And the teacher told me this, and it shocked me. He said, basically said it like this. He's like, you'll be surprised that a lot more people, they want to come out to vote, but because of the stuff that they've seen happening, they don't vote. And so the people who really don't vote, he said, if you think about it, the people who really don't vote, especially on a consistent basis, is about 50%. Give or take 5. So on average, 50% of people do not vote. The only ones that actually do vote are like your top 40%, which is the 30% that are actually like politically engaged. They know what's going on. They vote on a regular basis. It doesn't matter what it is, they vote. And then the 10%, those are the ones that are actually talking to the actual politicians themselves. Those are the ones that are actually in the back pocket of those politicians because they're more so higher in education. They have a higher education, they have a higher job, they have a lot of money that they can just, do whatever they want. And basically, they can walk up to the politicians and be like, this is what I want you to do, and blah, blah, blah. And because I want you to do this, I'm going to throw some money towards your campaign because I want you to, get it done. And it shocked me that what he said today rung so true with what's going on, that if the 50% of Americans, doesn't matter if you're white, Black, if you're Latino, doesn't matter, 50% that do not vote on a regular basis actually vote, a lot more politicians will start to pay attention to the 50% versus the 10%. It will favor a lot of the laws that are made catering towards the 50% versus the 10%. And I'm like, wow, that was a mind blower. That blew my mind. And then he broke it down to like the state and local elections. And he said, now think about this. He's like, on the local elections, 7% of people actually vote in the local elections. 7%.
Of like the entire
The-
country?
he's local. We're talking about like city statewise.
For the
We're
specific area, or for your area.
for just in general. He used the state of Michigan, and he said we use the state of Michigan because it's a lot closer. He said you use your city. 7% of the population in your city actually votes for your local leaders. 7%. He said, think about it. He said 7%. That's not a lot of people. But again, at the same time, the politicians, they listen to the 7% versus the 93, and the 93, they don't participate whatsoever. They rather sit there and look like and say, oh, well, why should I go vote if all they're going to do is listen to the people that are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I sat there and I thought about it. It rings true because here in Michigan, especially in my town, even though, yes, we had a record number of people vote Democrat this election cycle, that's not to say that come the next time the election cycle, come 2022, that same number may not show up. It actually may drop back down again. And then, yet again, we're going to see how many people who can vote, who can actually go out and vote, how much power they actually have to vote. And he's like, if people realize the power they have in their vote, and if people realize that if you really want stuff to change in your community, that you're going to have to get your hand, like literally, he basically put it like this. He said, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. There is no clean way of doing it. You're going to have to get your hands dirty. You're going to have to write these letters to your politicians. You're going to have to find these politicians and see if you can talk to them and let your voice be heard. Because if you don't, you have no room to complain why the 1% or the 7% always get their way, and yet you're still left holding the crumbs to whatever you got left. I'm like, dude, that's genius. Like, for real. And again, like I said, if you think about it, every level of government, if only 7% of the people actually voted and the 93 doesn't, even we could go generous. We say 10%. We'll say 10% of the population of whatever city that you're in. If 10% of the city that you live in actually voted for your state representative, your state senator, your city councilman, city councilwoman, your mayor, only 10% of them voted and the other 90 didn't, that sheds a lot of light, meaning that the 90 actually have something to say, and if they actually see something that needs to be done, they should be the ones that needs to be speaking up and speaking out versus waiting and see if said politician is going to come to them. Like, sometimes you got to bring the fight to them and get what you need done and out the way. Because if not, the same ploys, the same tricks that we see in each and every election cycle is still going to be the same. It's not going to change.
Boom.
Why do you think?
I mean,
local elections get so little, like attention, like I guess like advertising money, donations, or it's just not.
Again, I'll use I'll use this election cycle. This election cycle has taught me a lot, and I'm actually glad that I actually participated because it taught me. It opened my eyes to a lot. So the election, the election cycles for your state senators and your state house representatives, you know, the reason why the majority of those don't get a lot of attention is because of the fact, I think it was either Elle or Toby said this, that elections are state ran, right? Meaning that the feds, they really don't have true, Biko. And I'm gonna put this up. What B said, I am about to explain. Like literally, I'm about to explain this. Because of the fact that the state runs the elections, you also have to keep in mind that each state has the state has a state Republican Party, has a state Democratic Party. For my city, the city of Three Rivers, it's a rural city, really, really small. It's not small, but it's small. In comparison to Detroit, it's small, okay? The reason why the state Democratic Party doesn't really put money into Three Rivers, due to the fact they don't think, the party thinks that there's no good Democratic candidates to actually run against the Republican candidates. And most of these Republican candidates, they only need, like, let's say 5,000 votes, they win a seat. But yet the Democratic Party is trying to figure out, well, how come, we're not winning? Is because of the fact you have rural cities like Three Rivers where the majority of your that's okay. That's okay.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining. We'll see you. But it's like, if you want people to win, you're going to have to come off that bread and give it to them so they can actually have a chance. Because running a campaign, it is not easy. It's not. I mean, the candidate that I was supporting and that was helping, even she said running a campaign, it is not easy. It's fairly expensive. And to withhold all that money that could have been poured out into her campaign and actually do something more with that, yeah, that could have helped out a whole lot, And so when we think about that, when we think about the actual dynamics of how and why these state races are becoming less important, or rather they should become more important, is due to the fact a lot of these state races, they actually dictate what happens locally. A lot of your representatives, they dictate what happens to your city, to your county on a local level. You may think that, well, if we could get, let's say, we'll take this back. Let's say if we want to do high-speed internet in the city of Three Rivers. Okay, we need a state representative from our area to go to the state and say, hey, we want to have internet access for all the students in Three Rivers community schools, because of the fact we're still in this pandemic, and we want to make sure that our kids get a quality education and be able to have the internet resource there to be able to connect to whatever program is needed for them to pass. Can we get that going? Oh, yeah, sure. Here we go. Let's go ahead and have fund some money so you can go ahead and do that. Okay. Now that's done, a lot more kids, if they don't want to go to the traditional schools, they can stay home and be able to do their learning at home. And at the same time, what the school boards are able to do is tailor a program that's able to identify those students' needs, make sure they get a curriculum that fits their needs. So by the time they graduate, they're going to be on the same level, if not above, than those that are actually doing the traditional schools. Here's the kicker. As of right now in the city of Three Rivers, that's not happening at all. It's quite the total opposite of what's going on. And so we needed to make it a big push and a big emphasis on electing school board leaders, talking to them, let them know that, hey, if you're running for school board, I need you to go and redo this program that my current child and nieces and nephews are on, because it sucks. It's not working. It's setting them up to fail. And I don't want my children to fail. I want them to pass and succeed and believe that the skills that they've gotten from the online program matches what they could get at the traditional building. But then again, at the same time, understanding that because this pandemic is still going on and there's still cases popping off at the middle school, the high school, and at the elementary school levels, my kids don't want to go. They don't. They've already told me, no, we don't want to go. I need you to do that for me. And if you could able to do that, you got my vote. If not, come the next election cycle, you getting your butt out. Okay, cool. He said that's how you feel. Like, that's exactly how I feel, because it sucks. Like, no, my kids, they want a quality education. I want to give them a quality education to the point where if they want to go to college, they can and be successful. If they wanted to travel overseas and compete with the kids overseas to get into those colleges, they can and be successful. Like, I don't want them to be able to speak lighter than money. And again, true. And again, money talks, BS walks. It's sad, but it's true. It's sad, but it's true.
Very true.
I look at the current state representative race that happened here. Like, even though, yes, the candidate I wanted to go, she lost to a guy, ironically, is not from the area, but somehow he had like almost $500,000 poured into his campaign. He won. So it's like, you can't argue with that. But at the same time, I can argue, say that this fool does not have my city, the city's interest at heart. He does not. He does not have my county's interest at heart. Does not. And I'm willing to bet that come this next, year, 2 years, if he does nothing to help out this community, I'm going to raise as much whatever I can to get this man out, because he sucks. And it's like, why don't people here realize he's no good for us? If he tried it in another county and lost, and he moved down here to try to do it again, how come y'all can't put 2 to 2 together? Again, that's a different topic for a different story. But all in all, yes, dollar signs, yes. But all in all, it's the simple fact of the matter of a lot of these races, they need that attention. And sometimes a lot of those representatives and senators on the state level, they fly underneath the radar so hard because they think like, I can say whatever I want, escape, the scrutiny and whatnot, and to be able to be safe and not have to worry about the consequences of the people that are supposed to be serving. And yet they're mad and pissed off that I didn't deliver what I promised to them. Like, come on, dude, we got to hold you accountable. We got to hold these elected officials accountable. And like I said, like in previous videos, if you don't like what they're doing, you vote them votes out. And if you don't like the candidate that's running, then you get some skin in the game, you run. And you do what you got to do so you can be that representative that your community needs, your city needs, your county needs, whatever it is. You do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. And I'll support you 100% of the way.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack there. And I'm glad the chat has been popping too, because the money in politics for sure is like, I mean, that's something that gets talked about quite a lot. And we have there's a lot of ideas and solutions on how to decouple money from politics. Actually,
Oh,
that is a
yeah.
pretty good topic to talk about, if not by the end of the year, then at least by beginning of next. Because a lot of people are like, oh, what's going to happen with the Biden administration? What's going to happen with these officials if basically people are still beholden to their corporate donors, or they're beholden to whatever system. And so there's a lot of talk about how to kind of publicly fund elections. Obviously, there was democracy dollars, which was Yang's policy. I know Bernie has talked about publicly funding elections. They're both very like at the top when it comes to electoral reform. And there's just ideas out there. And how do you reduce the influence of lobbyists outside? There's just quite a lot of good, and also term limits so that you get people out. But then how do you sort of make sure the new people coming in are actually not just beholden to the same system? So that's absolutely will be a topic, but it does run into all of these issues, right? Voter turnout, which I actually didn't explicitly put as one of the topics for today, but I mean, it's all related, right? The whole point is suppression reduces turnout. And people are not going to turn out if they feel like their voice is not being basically heard, because these people in the office, basically either because local and state races aren't getting enough attention and money, or even for the national races, which are getting a lot of attention and money, if the perception is nothing changes, then what the heck, we're just not gonna like turn out, and then you end up having the minority sort of rule where like 10% people turn out, and then like God knows if what they're voting for is in the interest of the 90% that didn't. So no, it's really good. I'm glad that you did chime in, B, because this stuff helps the discussion keep flowing.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, I don't know, Elle, if you were gonna have said something, because I was I had some. I know it's past 10, but I have things that I'm definitely gonna talk about, related to things that will help quell some of these fires that keep coming up with voter fraud and suppression and ID. But I wanted to, make sure you were getting your words in.
I did want to talk about the whole voter ID thing, because like I feel like for as long as I've been voting, I've always had to just you only need your driver's license, and then they kind of like scan it on something, and then you have to do your signature and make sure it matches with your driver's license. But I don't know. It's just what you do. Like, I don't need my little voter ID, the little paper thing that doesn't have my picture, just has like my address and my precinct. I don't need that. I just need my driver's license. So like, it's just interesting, like just going state to state. Like, I'm sure even different parts of the state too, because this is in South Florida. But yeah, like I didn't know I was being voter suppressed.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. A lot of the little stuff that we don't think about is basically the stuff that they prey on. And when I mean they, I mean those people that feel. What did you say?
Those who are trying to suppress the vote.
Exactly.
Those in power, rather. It's not just randos. Well, some randos, but for the most part.
Yeah. But again, that's what they try to do. They try to suppress by each in every way possible. And I know my handwriting is messing on purpose. It is because of the fact that it's not going to be the same. Each time I sign any kind of documents, it's not going to be the same. And I do that on purpose because I know if anybody tries to forge my signature, clear as day, like, nope, that's not mine. I didn't sign that. Well, how you know? Because this is the way how my handwriting is. It's naturally sloppy. I've tried handwriting and everything else is sloppy. My cursive is sloppy, but I've used that as an advantage because I know that if anybody tries to copy it, it's not going to happen. So on my driver's license, you can see my first and last name clear as day, but it kind of like bunched together. And so if you were to ask me to sign my ballot or do a complete signature, it might match. it may be off a little bit because I do it in a way where it throws me off because I can't. I can't. Like I've tried it. I've done like 3 lines, and each of one of those lines, it was a slight variation, but everything else was still there. And like and I said like I know this is my handwriting because of this, and I know that Z it can turn into an E really quick if I'm just want to get it done, or like that R if I want to make it look big and pretty. I do another loop at the top, come down, do like a few more loops, and boom, done. But to go up there and sign is like, nah, not happening because y'all can say, nope, that don't match. Like now I can't vote. Really? My handwriting doesn't match. Go for it, El.
I have something interesting. So I remember like a few years ago about like Georgia and like the voter suppression about like the signatures and stuff and how they weren't matching. And I guess because like we all have like different signatures where it's like we write our full name or we have like a shortened version or just like, I don't know, loop-de-loop or whatever kind of thing. So when I was getting my passport, I turned in the paper, the picture, or whatever, and then like the woman was like, "All right, now you need to sign." So I signed it, and she was like, "Oh, can you make it look like your license?" Oh, she was like, "Oh no, this doesn't look quite like your license." And I was just like, "Oh well, I got my license when I was 17 years old. My signature just changed. I don't put my full first and full last as like my first initial last or part of my last or something." And so she was like, okay. And she was like kind of warning me, like, like this may happen, this may come back or something. You have to go fix it. I was like, all right. So like, days, weeks go by, I get something in the mail. I was like, I don't know what the hell this is. And I pull it out, it's my passport. And what I find kind of funny is that I feel like a passport, which is like what I need to, for it to be like linked to me to go to different countries and come back into the country, to show that I am an American with an American passport. I feel like that's a little bit more important than like my driver's license or signature or like, like things like that. I mean, maybe not like at least for voting, but like, I don't know. But I see how like the whole signature thing can be kind of annoying. Like, I don't know why I could see like a picture ID. Like if the voter ID had your picture on it, then like that should just be a wrap. I understand that we changed throughout the years, but once again, my license is my 17-year-old face. I didn't even have dreadlocks. So, and I still get, it's like, oh, I need your ID to make sure you're over 21. It's like, here you go. They don't, they could tell that it's still me. But, but yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Like I even like my voter ID, I still have it, and I'm quick to pull that one out, quick as in a heartbeat, quick to pull that out. And when I get told, "Oh no, you don't need that," I'm like, "Whoa, why not? What is your picture ID?" I'm like, "What if I didn't have a picture ID?" This is like one thing I got. I got my school ID. It has me cheesing on the front of it. It has my first and last name. Like, will that work? Well, blah, 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 blah. And again, and I get it because it really does vary from state to state. Some people is not as pushy about it, and some people are like, we're gonna be pushy about it. And so it's like, do your research as far as what your state requires for you to identify you as yourself in order for you to vote. Because this year, this election cycle, I should say, it really did show that many states were still stuck in the past and were not able to handle the amount of pressure of what was going to happen. They didn't have the infrastructure in place to be able to handle the demand of the people. They didn't have it, and it shows. And so now you're going to have these states and these people looking at what do we need to do in order for us to come to the grips that we're not in the 1950s and 1960s. We're in the 21st century now, where people are wanting to actually vote, and they want more than just one way of doing it. How are we going to be able to handle that load, knowing that the old ancient machines that we still have locked away collecting dust eventually are going to break down? So, what are we going to do? What are some ideas that we can have in place? Toby.
Yes. So I've been itching. So really, this whole thing, like, when it comes to modernization of voting, which might have to be its own episode in terms of, because this was good to talk about sort of what we've seen in the past as well as what we've seen this cycle around. But modernizing voting, which again, where's the hold on? Ah, there it is, the little ink symbol. At least for me, I don't know if y'all see it. The Yanks policy we had. Quite a few ideas on how to modernize. Oh yeah, no, it's for me. It's unfair for me, but it's okay. It's okay. We're in different parts. Modernizing voting. So something that would be interesting. I mean, actually, the interesting thing was this election. There were already ideas that were gonna help make things easier that weren't even super high tech. The very simple one that I didn't even think about was pre-canvassing. I was so like, when I saw that, I was like, this is so simple and it's so genius. You just start counting the freaking ballots, or you start processing the ballots every day you get them, so that the day of the election, you just run them through. Of course,
about that one.
Michigan, or sorry, I should say Pennsylvania, screw us, right? So they basically decided to not let that happen up until I think 3 days before. And so, and this kind of goes back to trust, because the ballots could not be processed early enough. And I actually overheard people even at my company, some people mentioned this, and I feel like a lot of people are talking online about how 200,000 ballots were found mysteriously on the night of the election, or like the day after, in Pennsylvania and Philly, but that didn't happen. You couldn't process a lot of the ballots until that night, and you can't process the mail-in ballots until after the in-person ballots. So then you end up finding a lot of ballots, which of course are disproportionately Democratic, because Trump had done a lot of campaigning basically against mail-in ballots, and likewise Biden and a lot of Democrats did a lot of campaigning for mail-in ballots to help get people, and the whole find a plan, iwillvote.com. So you ended up having the case where a lot of these ballots were more Democratic. But if you pre-canvass them, which that's the legislatures, so I didn't know Pennsylvania, I didn't know these states were the same. Republican legislatures with Democratic governor. You might as well just interchange all the states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, because they're all the same.
Yep. Yes, they are.
Just like, wait. The difference, though, I think, is the Supreme Court in Wisconsin is not Democratic versus in Pennsylvania, and I think Michigan it is, in terms of the majority. Michigan, I don't quite know, but
it's iffy. It's like the Supreme Court, the Michigan Supreme Court is like 50-50.
Okay. So fair enough. It's just interesting because, unfortunately, it's going to be seen as partisan, but it needs to be seen more as future forward. Like, we need to put ideas out there, like getting as much early voting as possible, pre-canvassing. I mean, I feel like they had already a lot of surveillance. Like, they had the poll watchers. They were even live streaming the counting process in Philly. I saw it randomly on YouTube just there, and they were just counting. So I mean, there's quite a lot of things that you can do to help provide transparency, because yes, there's a lot of sort of opaqueness about some of the processes, and there are people who are suspicious, who've always been suspicious of government. Unfortunately, that's breeded conspiracy. But if you can get in front of that and do as much as possible to just show this is what's going on, maybe even nice little infographics and breakdowns of how this process happens, so people know exactly what's normal in the counting process, from kind of like if you're doing supply chain, from procurement of the raw materials to the building of a product. What's the sort of supply chain of the counting of the ballots from the warehouse to every step, or sorry, the distribution center, or the whatever centers the ballots are dropped off at. If you could kind of just do, making people feel more comfortable and aware of the process, and just kind of making it kind of fun. Like, yeah, let's show what's going to happen. So it'll be a little bit less. I mean, people are still going to spread conspiracy, but it's there could be more that could be done to, I guess, engage people to know what's going on. So pre-canvassing, more transparency. My personal favorite, and this was even before Yang started running. So I was already interested in like how the heck can you solve this problem where people are worried about IDs suppressing. The other side is worried about IDs being necessary to prevent fraud. And I was like, well, why don't we just use biometrics? So check it out. You use your fingerprint. I mean, this could cost quite a lot of money. I don't know where the fingerprints are coming from. And technology is because there are a lot of failures. I work in software. I fully understand. I do not want to turn the government into Silicon Valley because that would be a hot mess. But it would still be good. I feel like in some way you can at least offline, right? If you could use biometrics, and actually, I saw this a few weeks ago. There was an app that if you're I think if you're visually impaired, or no, it might not have been visually impaired, but there were certain disabilities you could use this app to actually vote. But it was very secure, it was very specific, and they actually talked about how you use your biometrics on the phone, your fingerprint.
That's true.
Or you use your vision. I mean, I guess it depends on the type of impairment you have. But if you can use your own biometrics to unlock your phone, get access to the vote, maybe even use some two-factor authentication or God knows what, these people are able to in very isolated ways to vote. And I was like, well, can you normalize that? So if you show up to a polling place, I mean, pandemic, yeah, you don't want to be touching stuff. And it might be a little bit hard to figure out how to like get people's irises and all this. But if you could do that and use biometrics, you've cut away one problem, because this is not James Bond where people are going to like steal someone's fingerprint, using one of those latex gloves and steal someone's fingerprint from like a dead person. We're not doing that. Secondly, this is not Men in Black where we're burning people's fingerprints off, so you can't forget your fingerprint, aka lose your ID or have some strict requirement. So I was thinking about this like 2 years ago. I was like, how can you use technology to help solve this problem, make it more accessible to vote, and sort of reduce fraud and reduce suppression? And that was my idea. Biometrics. Don't know how feasible it is. Don't know how much it costs. The engineers will figure that out. And we already we struggle with basic technology in polling places. So I don't know. Actually, so I actually remember something like this where AI was doing a model. I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but AI would judge beauty contests, and it was very subjective.
Yeah, who was it? Like from The Voice, like Gwen Stefani's husband, like was voted like people's sexiest man alive. I was like,
Blake Shelton?
Huh?
I didn't watch The Voice. My sister did though.
Billy,
The Voice.
Yeah, Blake Shelton. That's Gwen Stefani's.
Oh, Blake.
Yes,
Blake Shelton.
Blake.
Yeah.
It's like, like why? Like there's other like men. Like People Magazine, I feel like it's most likely like in New York. They could have just went down the street and just found like, hey, okay, let's like Blake Shelton or just some random guy in New York. Anyway, so random dude.
They also had what's my man's name? John Legend. He was one too. I'm like, John Legend? I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like he's better looking than Blake Sheldon, but like.
But still, there's plenty of other men. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Next subject, please.
Yeah, I don't even understand. Yeah, like I don't follow a lot of this stuff enough. That's another topic though, is how to how AI fails / succeeds maybe. My God, don't even get me started. But
so like another thing about voter, like like the biometrics or like trying to find people and making sure that they are who they are. I feel like sort of along those lines, like I feel like a good way for like polling would just be to text people, because like they were texting me a shit ton, during like this. So it's like, why don't you just text me for the poll? Like, it's like, what do you think I'm gonna do? Like, get. I mean, I guess you can do like you can get like those cell phone emulators, but then
Or
again,
like a burner or something.
but I feel like it would have to connect with a phone number. So like that's still unlikely to get like because yeah, you can emulate it, but like
Oof,
I don't
oof,
know,
oof, oof.
that would be an extra step, and I feel like that would be a little bit difficult. But like to like do like some more accurate polling is like why don't you just text people?
There
We
you
could
go.
have a Facebook thing where it's just like
Mm.
like I
Yeah,
mean
I get you.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Modernizing Poland is something that I remember someone talked with either the Zach and Matt show, or they talked with Nerds for Yang, or they talked with someone back during the campaign. It was some guy who was a researcher. He might have been a PhD student at Stanford, and he was basically talking about how he was trying to modernize Poland because basically it was garbage. As we all kind of figured out, we were like, there's no way of tracking the interest of new candidates for people who weren't politically engaged. And when people did try signing up, myself included, to YouGov, because I was like, God, I was like, I
Yeah.
remember one person in the gig was like, am I gonna have to buy a freaking landline and set it up and to get called and answer a phone to answer a poll so this man can get on these debate stages or
Mhm.
just in general, just because the polling helps reflect public opinion, influence public
Right.
opinion. So the person was trying to do something more interactive, something online, like some kind of poll where the questions were more engaging.
Oh,
And I didn't really watch all of it, but it was interesting what they were talking about. I don't even think I finished the little prototype that they used. Um,
I remember what you're
because
talking about, Toby.
I think one of them was actually a way that they said if you got $1,000 a month, what would you spend it on? And that was one of the ones they did to try to collect data. So there's definitely ways, and another thing, which will again have to be talked about in another episode. But if you have a citizenship portal, if you have like a citizenship portal with some people, in fact, B. Colwell said insert a chip, this will be the same vein where people start maybe freaking out because, Lord have mercy, like people will be like, you have a chip, that's the mark of the beast. It's, you know,
Mhm.
it's basically people will be like, yo, we don't want ourselves to be tracked. But if we actually have like a citizenship portal, that
Mhm.
can make it even easier to be pulled because you could get like something where they don't know who you are, it's anonymous, but you're able to sort, just like when you get email links for SurveyMonkey or anything else, they don't have your personal information, but you do have to have your email and your name in that survey account, so that way you can get the stuff. So it's kind of like it's like a level of security where you're anonymous, but you're also able to still obviously get recurring surveys about something. So if you had a citizenship portal where they were sending like polls and they could weight it. I understand that they don't want to give too much weight to people who never were voting, like people who basically never voted. They don't want to take their weight too much, which is why we don't use straw polls and like these like high school polls like in Iowa and other states, because these people, one, either can't vote, or two, might not really vote even if they say, oh yeah, we love Bernie, we love Yang, but are they going to show up? But if you have a citizenship portal, you can kind of send a blast out on certain topics, including presidential topics, candidates and whatever, or congressional candidates or Senate. And then based off of your voting history, they could weight it a certain way. And that would at least reach out. That would make it much easier where if you have this sort of citizenship portal with a lot of other information in it that would be useful for you, including taxes and other things, you could be pulled in a much easier way. You could see things much easier. You could register to vote much easier. I mean, I get that's a state by state thing, but it would give you the resources. And that's like related but a little different. This is like the modernization, very future looking, and how to like freaking what's the word, reform, like
There
not just reform, but like improve a lot of things that could be improved in a way that hopefully is not like too high tech. Like we're not trying to like make things too crazy because you don't want too much. What's the word? You don't. I mean, I know with Obamacare, like there was already a lot of jokes and roasts about the portal and how the website was just bad from the beginning.
Mhm.
So you want to make sure it is accessible, it's usable. You don't want to be too complicated. You want it to be as simple enough, but with enough things in it that are useful. So polling's a big one. Being able to register to vote, being able to like have verification of who you are. I feel like there's a lot of ways that you could get more people registered to vote and like engaged in polls and these things if you just did a lot of modernization. But again, that is hopefully that's something that can be pushed forward in a lot of like future conversations. We have 2 years until 2022, 4 years until 2024, and obviously a lot of us aren't going anywhere. So we're still going to be here to give our ideas.
I might be in a bunker, but that's a different story.
So you might be in the bunker.
I might be in a bunker. I might be.
Oh, wow.
So I just had like this idea.
Mhm.
Well, it's like it's the classic one. It's just like using the caller ID. Because like sometimes like my phone will ring and like it'll have the ID of whoever's calling.
Yeah.
Even like if I didn't have that name saved or anything. I don't know if it's just an Android thing, but like I've seen it a couple of times. I'll be like, like it was like the Florida something, like the Florida, election thing. I was like, what? I gotta answer this. What the hell is this? So like if there was like some, and they have like official ass polls. So if they had like official polls and like they had like the caller ID and like it could link to like your Android and your iPhone phone, phone, so to pick that up. State surveillance with the
I think call screen on my phone Android is Andy. I think what you might be getting what B might be talking about is how I think China has it where
WeChat.
yeah where the government kind of like gets involved in that, and so it sends off like polls or whatever, and it kind of directs it back to the government as far as how you feel, how you think about this situation, that situation, and if there's something going on, how they would be able to like kind of like target it and try to make it better. I know I think it was like last year I read something about it. I think it might have been WeChat. I think it might have been where once you kind of say or express your opinion, then you'll get I know at B Caldwell she was saying that she got slammed, but it's basically the same thing, whereas you get like a bunch of stuff just float to you. And so it's like there's some stuff that I need, there's some stuff that I don't need, there's some calls that I'm looking for, and there's some calls I don't want, and I think that it'll help. It'll definitely help. And especially when it comes to like polling and whatnot, because my phone, even though I have an Android, I don't have that. I wish I had caller ID. I probably need to talk to my service provider and see if I can get it, and to be able to kind of like screen my calls better, because there are probably people that were trying to call for polls, and I didn't know. No, not only that, but they don't show up like who it is or
right.
where it's coming from. So it's like I probably missed like a bunch of polling calls or people like this like canvassing and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that sucks. And again, I do agree that we should have 21st century ideas and models and technology and whatnot to be able to keep up with what's going on now, So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be an ongoing conversation. And I feel like Costa Rica, what's going on here? Wait, whoever B Caldwell. For all of us, follow us on Twitter, first of all. I'm guessing most of y'all found us from Twitter or otherwise, or if it was from Facebook. find us on Facebook. We're all gonna be friends or whatever, and we're
Yeah.
gonna keep talking outside of these streams. And Lord knows when Politicon, like if Politicon happened this year, which it didn't, I probably wouldn't have gone anyway. It would have been hard. But when Politicon happens, we're gonna have to show up in force. When these kind of conventions happen, we're gonna show up in force, and we're gonna like get a lot of energy and actually find ways to influence, ideas. Like I understand that there's a lot of tried and true things that work, but like if we can like push things forward to solve some of these problems when it comes, this is like because some of the things I actually like a lot were democracy reform, electoral reform, and you could say voting reform. But yeah, okay. Of course, I know Gabby. Yes, for sure. Oh no. So social currency. This is a thought that I actually thought of as we were talking.
Oh,
China.
boy.
Yeah. Oh boy, indeed. We're actually gonna definitely have to talk about this because one of Yang's policies was called time banking. And
Yes.
time banking is really just a concept where you do something good for someone, like take out their trash, or you could help an old lady cross the street, and you basically get like points. You get something good for it, like a voucher that you can exchange for money.
Mhm.
Now, China does this, but they have a positive and negative where if you don't do good things, like if you jaywalk, they might like basically lower your credit score or like hit you
Yep.
with a downgrade.
Yeah. Like
Which,
that one episode of Black Mirror.
yeah, oh my goodness, that was a good like that episode got me because I was like, you just become incentivized to become a horrible person so that you can keep your score high.
Oh,
And
man.
we do not want that in the U.S. But what we could say is the time banking, where you do good things for people and you get to sell, exchange it for a voucher. You get a little leaderboard in a competition, and that will help increase civic engagement too, because you'll be more involved in your local community.
You're right.
Without the bad parts, because we really don't want to be surveilled and have the government like say what we can and can't do based off of like how good we are. But you can kind of have like a positive kind of credit in some way, and that's again a little bit different of a conversation.
Mhm.
But I do know that the citizenship portal and just some of these modernization efforts, you have to strike that balance where you don't want to have mistrust, because right now we just have no trust, and that's why we were able to have these conspiracies spread. That's why there are people who weren't trusting mail-in ballots versus those who did. There's not really a lot of trust in the government. I think 17 or maybe up to 30% of Congress is trust. Like people have like less than 30% of trust in Congress. And so if you want to like have the government give you something, I mean, the stimulus came and that was, I mean, it was a little bumpy, but people like that. But overall, it's going to be hard to like change things, get people more engaged and say, yeah, sign up for this government portal or do this thing and give the government your data or your fingerprints if you don't have trust. So you have to restore trust at a local, like at a fundamental level, I feel like, in order to make a lot of changes. And that's hard,
Mhm.
but I guess that's why we're talking. Is to kind of figure out the fact that we need solutions to these problems, but it's going to be a challenge because of
Right.
the environment that we're in. And
No.
partisanship, of course, is always an issue.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, Gabby, these things. Yes, if you're talking about the China social currency, that's a very real thing. Like WeChat is the app where basically there's a good video on it where WeChat does everything for you. You can basically use it as an Uber service. You can use it to like order food. You can use it to check your bills. You can use it for everything. And the map the video kept basically re-emphasizing you've not left the app, like you can do all these things without leaving the app, and you can like find the
Mhm.
people in your social network who, it was just crazy like when I was looking at it, because it basically becomes everything. And I joked about it a few years ago, like, yes, let us get link all these services together into one big super app. But a friend of mine who actually, I think he was born here, but his family's from China, he was like, Toby, no. He was like,
Mhm.
he was also a grad student in computer science like me. So, I mean, we have some similar interests, but he's like, no, you don't want this.
I feel like
Because,
that would remind me of like, have you seen the movie Wall-E?
yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of reminds me of like, how everybody's just like in like a floating chair, just staring at a screen and it
Oh
has all
god.
that stuff going on.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that's what it seems like.
yeah. At some point too, I'm like, once you solve all these problems, is that what we're just gonna be doing? Is just in front of the screen, Netflix and
I feel
everything all day?
like honestly, because like like especially with coronavirus and like people are going to be like learning on screens. People are probably going to be going into VR.
Yeah, yeah,
VR is a thing that like I mean, I don't even know what really happens in VR. That's like a whole other world that
yeah.
like
And
Yeah,
even AR has become augmented reality. Like
yeah,
if you have Snapchat, of course, you've seen the things pop up or
yeah. It's
all
on
the
Amazon.
filters.
On the Amazon app.
Yeah.
They use it
Yep.
today
Amazon.
to see like, oh, will this match with my vanity?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think, and I know someone said 100. We got to the 100 mark. Yeah, this is good though. B Caldwell, thank you. This is, I mean, everyone, Gabby, everyone has been contributing pretty well.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Mhm.
Definitely always interesting to hear what people's thoughts are
Yeah, for sure.
outside of just what we're saying because, you know, I like I like thinking, brainstorming, roundtabling. A lot of us do. A lot of us are here to
Yeah.
talk about these things, give different perspective, and I mean, we're not going to single-handedly solve a problem, but we can throw ideas out there and then possibly come back to these things
Mhm.
and
Agreed.
you know do whatever we can to
Agreed.
make proposals and make change. Um, yeah, I don't. The citizenship portal was something I want to say it was between June and actually was it June? I think I don't remember why Ying tweeted about it. Probably because of the freaking stimulus and because of some other issues that were going on.
Mhm.
Where it
Yeah.
was like he
Voting.
tweeted once about an idea that we should like have a citizenship portal to modernize like and maybe part of it was voting because of the voter registration and all the issues with all
Yeah.
the primaries that were happening with COVID going on. It was harder for some people to get the paperwork or to. I mean, a lot of it's online, but like for new voters, sometimes you have to go. Like I had to do that for Massachusetts. Thankfully, I did it in February. I had to like because I don't have a mass ID, so I had to like actually sign it, like do some paperwork. Also, say where my previous address in Maryland was, where I was registered to vote. Um, and then I had to like give it to an office. And then the pandemic, that kind of thing is going to be harder. You can mail things, but I think the idea was we need like a modernized portal that can take care of some of these things. And that's why I even thought of it. I mean, I've thought of it. I actually thought of a citizenship portal, and we're gonna have to talk about immigration, which is a very interesting topic that I don't actually know a ton about, despite being the son of immigrants. But that's fine. Um, Immigration is a fun topic, but I thought of the citizenship portal because there was a guy in Texas who was an American citizen who was almost deported because he was with a friend who I guess was an undocumented immigrant. So he was in ICE. The conditions were horrible. He was there for maybe like over a week to 2 weeks. And the conditions were so bad, he almost considered like just telling them, yes, I'm not here legally, deport me. But thankfully, he was released. I don't know if he was given a formal apology. I don't think any of the Texas senators or governor, all Republicans, really said anything about it. So I was like, bro, if you had like a portal, I mean, first of all, that was completely inhumane. But like
Yeah,
even from a
absolutely.
from a technical, just logistical standpoint, how do you fail so badly to not know that this guy is a resident of your state? Now, I don't think he was an adult, but it shouldn't have mattered. He is a citizen. He should have had something saying that he was a Texas resident, a U.S. citizen, but somehow um, they just couldn't match up his stuff. And I'm like, bro, this is like literal failure. And so I was like, if you had some kind of way of just being like, yeah, this guy is a citizen. Like, if the states are that incompetent that they can't figure it out, there should be some federal level way of knowing. Um, so there's just so many reasons why this ends up being a useful thing. As long as people can get past the idea of big government watching you, um, which again, it should be more anonymized, where they don't actually use your data. Right, the whole point is not for them to take your data and sell it, because that would just be horrific for the government to basically become what Facebook,
The social
Google, and
media.
all these. Yeah, because that would be bad. But like, if there was a way more to be more anonymous, then that would be good. It would be very useful. You could do a lot of things in the portal. Taxes would be easier. everything would be a little more smooth, ideally. But nothing works that well with technology, so God knows.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Wow.
But I mean, I think I'm like, there's a lot. It's very interesting. I love thinking about the future, and a lot of it's actually not as crazy far off. Like the future that you see in like Star Trek and like crazy like warp speed portals, like that stuff is just like, okay, that's not happening. But now that we're in like a different world, like where social media and like all these things are more realities, it's like, okay, some things that are futuristic aren't that crazy, like a citizenship portal, a more modern voting system.
Mhm.
I mean, there's all these things that are futuristic, but they're not like out of reach per
Right.
se.
Not that far off.
The scale is the problem. How big can you make these things so that they actually work for all 300,000 plus citizens, or 700? I don't even know how many citizens are in this country, but it's a lot.
I know there's 330 million people in the country. I don't know about
Okay.
the citizens stuff, but it's definitely over 300,000 because
Yeah.
14 million voted.
Right.
So
Numbers.
but we did have record turnout throughout the country. It was like 66%. And also, and like that was like as much or even more than the 1900 election. I don't know what the hell happened in the 1900 election, but there was just a lot of people voting, and we got more than that this time.
Yeah. So we said 1900.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on that year.
Yeah. Turn of the century. That was when Theodore Roosevelt became president. Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay.
Spanish War happened 1898. Spanish American War. But I don't know what the dynamics were enough for why
but
the
people
turnout was that big.
vote really badly.
Yeah.
So we got like more than that this time. So that's crazy. I guess it's the
Yeah. And we need a reason besides Trump to basically be the catalyst to vote on either side, right? That he was the single defining thing for people to come out to vote against him, and then for people to come out to vote more so in 2016 to vote for him. And it's like, okay, Trump is one person, but hopefully people will take that energy and put it towards what they think needs to be fixed and reformed. But that obviously is going to change depending on your personal views, your partisan views. But that's part of why we need as much of a baseline as possible to galvanize broad support for certain issues. I mean, and I think the war on drugs will be a topic we'll talk about very, very, very soon, especially with some of what got announced last week with legalization of drugs. And that's another one that you
can't just say that, Toby.
in different, well,
like marijuana got legalized.
Yes. I forgot. Okay, I guess if you want to be politically smart, sure, you don't say that.
Drugs are legal now.
Yeah, take this clip and use it against me when I run for office in 20 years, which is not happening, by the way. But
there you go.
No, I meant, yes, marijuana was legalized in some conservative states, including medicinally. Oregon, of course, decriminalized all drugs. So the point is, things like that can become a bit more broad. Florida voted for $15 per hour wage, and that's another thing when it came to like, yeah, the little dance. Okay.
So the thing about that, I'll just say it real quick. So in 2021, it'll go up to $10 an hour, and then it'll go up $1 more every year until it gets to 15. So in 2026, it'll be $15 an hour.
Yeah.
So, but that's good because it's still more, because $10 an hour is still more than what was going on now. So that's an improvement.
Yeah. Over 6 years, as Bat Noor said, and I guess what was so interesting is the ballot measures. And we talked about this like many times with our local voting streams. But the fact is that like direct democracy works. Like you're able to have something like Trump won Florida, but the $50 per hour measure passed. And I'm curious to see what percentage of people it passed for. Like what percentage of people basically voted for it, because that would be so interesting to see. Like, yes, woohoo. Seriously, that wasn't sarcastic.
Yeah.
It was woohoo.
You're
Yes.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And like it's nice to see that on a ballot you can actually put things that people can vote for, and people will vote for them outside of the partisanship. And it's like, yes, more of this, please. I think that's something that should happen for, I mean, California had like 100, not literally, it was like 20 something or 30 propositions on their ballot, and that's a lot. Like at that point I saw a comedian, like someone on Instagram was saying something like, people come thinking they're going to vote for president, next thing you know you're filling out BCRs and like free response things. Like they're basically reading like these paragraphs like they're a word problem. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was like these long text questions. So shout out to the campaigns who actually very strongly advocated for things like Prop 24, data privacy. Thank God. Another topic we'll talk about, and how that can spread to the rest of the country, hopefully. And then there was a cash bail. Again, another topic. There was one about cash bail being gotten rid of in California. Very controversial. A lot of pro-black, pro-criminal justice reform people were against that bill because they were afraid that it would give more power to AI. And
no food, no sleep.
Oh Lord, yeah, we've been doing, our streams have been going longer. They didn't used to be 2 hours. They used to be an hour, and if they went, yeah, sometimes they wouldn't even go up to 10. And if it went up to 10, usually we were like, okay, 10, 15, we cut. An hour and a half was like, oh man, this is a really good discussion. And now we're just out here on 2 hours. It just seems like regularly.
We do this every day. You know, we just do this every day.
Hey, at one point we were going to do this 4 or 5 times a week, and
yeah,
we had to.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Man.
So but, I'm glad that you stayed along. Y'all, though, you should follow us on Twitter. I mean, I'm not really on Twitter as much, but whatever. It'll be cool to just keep up outside of the stream. If you're ready, I mean, obviously you must be following some of us if you got on here, but tag us, say, hey, you know, I'm glad that we were able to talk about these topics on here, or Facebook or wherever the heck. Obviously, if you're friends like Gabby, I know who you are in real life. But for the rest of y'all, feel free to interact with us. Our MCOY Twitter page, we be putting questions out there. We put questions out there sometimes before these topics so that we can engage like a week or a few days before the next stream, get people's ideas, people's thoughts. Right. So it's not just ours, it's not just us, it's, you know, a community kind of conversation.
Correct.
So definitely feel free to hit us up, DM, tag, see our posts and interact and just keep it going, because we're really here just to talk and give perspective that might not be seen in other places. And I mean, Hey. Oh, great. How did you find us? I'm really glad to hear.
I think it was Mindful Skeptics.
Oh, because you were on, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You brought in a whole new audience.
Yeah.
An audience.
Look, Mindful Skeptics, he's really cool. He has a bunch of people. But then again, I mean, because I was even on that stream when Elle was talking to Mindful Skeptics, like, yes. Get it, Elle. Get it, Elle. Like, yes. Let people know what's going on in Florida. Yes.
Okay, I'm glad. I can't even like remember exactly what I was even saying, but I'm glad that people liked it.
Listen, you was handling your thing. I don't care. No, I was at the store shopping, had the stream going. I'm like, oh yeah. Like, yeah, that's our girl. That's Elle. That's our girl.
Hey.
She belong with MCOY. She ain't going nowhere. Yeah.
Oh,
but seriously, you guys, thank you again. Thank you, because without you guys being here, we wouldn't really be here. And because it was pretty much demanded, start a channel. That's what we did. And so, again, if you're new to the channel, please feel free just to go through all the other videos that we've done and pretty much leave a comment. Like Toby said, we do try to, post out a few days before with questions regarding the topic. Speaking of which, President Manny is in the house, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, snap. He came at that's
President Manny.
dedication. This dedication. This man came. He said, I don't care if it's 2 hours after. I'm going to show up. I love
President
it.
Manny has entered into the building. Yes.
I love it.
Florida Yang Gang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys don't realize we get excited. We do.
We
A lot of
do.
small stuff we do. But man, for next week, if you guys, please, we have a special guest coming next week.
Oof, yes.
Oh yeah. You guys probably want to stay tuned for that one because a lot of it is going to transition as far as what's going on now into pretty much the future as far as the next, let's say in 2021, what's going to happen and kick off in 2021, which will lead off to the races in 2022, ultimately to the big races in 2024. So please, if you guys set your dials, set your clocks, your calendars, notifications, whatever you got to do, please be here to view this next week's interview. And all I'm gonna say is this: if you don't make it, you're gonna miss out on the treat. Yes, you can you can watch the rerun. You can, but it's better to be here if you can. I know, Manny, I get it. You just got back from work. We got you, dude. You are good.
Oh yeah, no, don't worry. I'm just messing. I'm glad that you came on.
No,
you're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to wait.
We're not big yet.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, Biden! I don't even know what that would look like. What would a conversation with Joe Biden even look like from us? Now, Yang for sure. That is gonna have to happen at some point.
Yeah. That's more plausible.
Yeah, so that's much more plausible than Joe Biden, the president-elect. Can you imagine like the views that we would get just to be like, who is this channel?
Who are these people? Like,
who are these
they
people?
have a real was she in her bed? Was that
Oh god! And there's like a freaking fridge behind me. Like, who are these kids?
But what is this behind his back? Like, what is this background? Because part of is that a door hanger? Like, listen.
Oh, we're not in the big leagues yet, but we're getting there. Don't worry about that.
Biden and professional lighting and cameras.
Oh man, my camera again. Oh man,
that'd be awesome though. That's like they should have that, just like random ass like the streams just come on.
I mean, Biden's we'll see what this man does. Like, I know Obama was on YouTube Live or YouTube Fires. I don't even know what the heck it was. He did something like fireside chat type things. I don't know if Biden is going to be savvy enough to like. I mean, he obviously has been on the Breakfast Club, and he's done. Obviously, everyone's been doing Zoom during the pandemic, but like it'll be interesting to see if there is some non-traditional platforms Biden and the administration go on to try to get their message out. I mean, you're at that point, you're a sitting president, so how would you use it? Oh Lord!
Wow.
You know what? I can't even be mad because I literally said, if you don't subscribe to our channel, you ain't black.
Toby.
That's what we got to tell Biden.
That's what I said. I think the episode that we did that where we talked about those comments.
Yeah.
I think I literally used that like as my promo.
If you don't subscribe,
Here we go.
I'll be here all week. I'll be here all day. So I'm not a rapper though.
Oh man.
Oh,
but
man,
let me stop.
Rich.
Yeah.
That's rich. I'm sweating bullets. Oh my god.
Dude, I thought it was just like if you just don't vote for him, you're not blacked out. I have to vote for him and podcast with him now.
Europe. Yeah, you got to do quite a lot. Biden is literally.
I mean, they always like criticize the Black experience. Like, it is hard. Like, like you gotta do that now. Okay.
I'm weak.
Okay. I'm weak. I'm done.
I'm speaking of Black experience. You know for a fact that that's going to be. How many things do we want to hint at? Basically, the black card revoked / growing up either in white areas or. Anyways, you're going to see a stream in some weeks where we talk about what Blackness is perceived to be and, you know, certain activities that you may have participated in that were not seen as Black. But
no food, no sleep. Here we go.
I'm not leaving until Biden comes on. come through next week. You'll see who comes on.
It may not be Biden. It probably won't be Biden.
Like, he's way too busy. Like, it's like he's like working with the coronavirus. Like, oh no, let's wait a moment. I have to get on the MCOY.
Yeah, I mean, we can help give some ideas. You know, tell him a few things, and I'm sure.
Like, no, listen, I'm gonna need you to go download an app to your smartphones called Brain Games. Do that for us at least 2 hours a day, and then we'll be good from there. Other than that, sir, I don't know what else we can tell you because you will probably forget this conversation like the next 5 minutes. What we're talking about? Come on, Joe.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
It's all fun. It's all fun. It's all in fun.
Oh man, yes. But no, seriously, we do have a really, really special guest coming on next week. You guys will love her. I'm gonna give you that much. You will love her. And yes, she is Yang Gang. And she's going to come with some information that's going to be needed to be addressed, but also at the same time, give her a platform to speak. You know, so please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. And also realize and know that we're also not on just on YouTube, but we're on Twitch, we're on Periscope. So yes, you can find us there, of course, Twitter. I will be dropping the if you want to follow us on Twitter, I will be dropping the tags in the description box once this session is done. And then I'll also be dropping the links where you can watch the live streams. So if you don't have YouTube, but if you have Periscope or Twitch, you can watch us there. And so at least that way, while you're vegging out and gaming, you can catch us live on Tuesdays. Unless something else changes, then we may be doing a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday. I don't know. He can sit in Harris. Another topic. Here we go. I don't know about. I'll leave my reservations alone.
Well, I mean, people have different views, definitely. Yang Gang is a very diverse set of people with a very diverse set of views, even within the MCOY Black Yang Gang verse. Very diverse set of views. Ronald's nodding because we know. We should definitely talk about HBCUs. That's for sure a topic. I mean, that's broad, but I think it's relevant because Harris is an AK.
Well, no, you have to go to an HBCU. You don't have to go to an HBCU to.
Sorry, that's a separate topic. Is the Divine Nine? I'm mixing up my topics.
Okay.
So those are two separate topics. But what I guess the topic overall is sort of the Black historical, like everything. Why do we have Black historical colleges, Black historical frats? Why do we have, I mean, maybe not the NAACP. There's a lot of organizations you could go through, but I feel like a lot of the more modern ones that were formed in the 1900s, especially. So that's why I kind of got thrown off because she went to, I want to say, Howard. And I want to say some of her, there were other people in like the Biden world or Harris world who also went to HBCUs.
I know Stacey Abrams went to Spelman.
Yes. So there was a meme that basically said how she helped, obviously with the Georgia turnout, and she went to Spelman. Harris went to, Howard, and then there's someone else who went to another. I forgot who this one. There's a third person, and it was just highlighting how HBCUs have basically elevated certain people.
Mhm.
to the highest levels. And I didn't know Stacey Abrams went to Spelman until that. So
Yeah, same.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of exciting things. We have our
Yeah.
own topics. We have special guests, collaborations with other channels. Like we had Yang Gang Fitness. We had well, we had other Yang Gangers come on, like Gif Shinobi, Shazarele. We love
Yeah.
y'all. That was
Mhm.
cool. Definitely see more of that. So there's just a lot of cool things going on.
Yes.
So tune in with us. We're fun.
We,
we have fun. Oop.
and if you need a good laugh, we'll make sure your core will get worked out.
Oh yeah.
Just believe that you will be laughing. Yes. Miss Brooke. Okay. Boom.
Okay, that's you.
So I'm guessing the B stands for Brooke.
Dope.
Okay.
Dope. Yeah. And I need to, well, I don't know if I need to because honestly, the lack of Twitter is kind of.
Toby, don't you start.
Yeah, just go on Twitter and just like follow her. It's not a big deal.
Oh, no. I'm going to. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm going to follow her on Twitter. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm like, really, dude?
No.
Right now.
No, hold on. I'm gonna clarify because apparently this is not coming out the right way. I'm
Let me
following you back. I'm following you on Twitter. I'm saying that I haven't been on Twitter as much, and what I was saying was that maybe it's for the best that I'm not on Twitter as much. But that aside, I'm gonna go and follow. Of course, I'm gonna follow. What do you think this is?
Oh, my bad, Toby.
I guess I was like wondering, like, where is he going with this?
Because even when you said "Don't you dare," I was like, "Wait, what are you referring to?" I was like, "Wait, what's up?" I was like, "What do you have?"
I'm not really on Twitter much, so maybe I don't know.
No. What I'm saying is, you might not see much activity from me as some of the others.
And I'm pretty weird on Twitter. Like I don't feel like I speak too much on politics. Like I occasionally do, but I don't think I'm too.
When you speak.
Yeah, I mean I speak. But
again, no, hold on. But when you speak, you go viral.
Oh, that one time.
One time.
That was I still can't believe it sometimes. I'm like, oh shit, I went like viral.
Yeah, like almost 500K people, I want to say.
Yeah, it was over 500K.
Oh, it was over 500K like that? Jeez.
On Twitter.
Oh,
and then like the shade room and all
even real life stores printed your thing out and had it with your Twitter handle and everything. And I was like, holy crap. Like
I know her. I even saw you on Facebook. Like, I know her.
Dope. Following right now.
Yep. You got to follow for me. Oh.
Much appreciated. Engagement makes everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And so, oh my gosh, streaming for 2 hours.
2 hours and 12
minutes. Yes.
Like, wow.
I know. I think maybe pulling the a 24-hour may not be always as bad.
I mean, no.
Lord. I was gonna say this is like, was it iCarly or these like shows that like, I mean that was a TV show, but they kind of played off of the idea that there are people who do these 24-hour streams or like these whatever hour streams, and like back then I was never watched web shows, so I didn't really get it, but like now I'm like, oh wow, people really be going for like ever a rally,
playing
prep,
a video game or something. Yeah,
playing a video game.
Like 4 hours for sure. Like if I had like a better setup and it was like a little bit more comfortable, I could definitely do like
there you go
4 hours.
Yeah.
It's like a fundraiser or something.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
I got an idea.
There you go.
What's your idea? Or you want to share it later or something?
I got an idea.
Okay.
I got us. All right. Twitter kind of toxic. This is true.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what I was getting at.
Twitter, yes, it is. However,
like kind of an understatement. But yeah.
However, you're able to weed out some of the non-toxic people from the toxic people, and it'll make Twitter that much more enjoyable, which is what I've been finding out. And so I might have to go through and wow, follow for follow, bam, yes, follow for follow, yes. Oh, yes, we love you. So, without further ado, does anybody have never on social media though? I'm like that on Facebook. Like I have a Facebook, but I don't use it. So yes, I feel you. I feel you. Any final questions, thoughts, concerns? Toby's in his phone. That's okay.
No, well, I'm specifically going through the tweet. So I followed her, and I think I'm already following President Manny from last time. That's what I just needed to check.
There we go. All right, you guys, it's been fun again. Like I said, tune in next week, Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We have a very special guest coming on the show, and she's going to kick us some knowledge and kick off what's going on, the transitions, and yes. And again, just always come through, be engaging. And I will be posting a topic, I should say, probably for the next few days so you guys can interact. But other than that, we are signing off for the night. Toby, L, myself, Ronald from MCOY.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Everyone, I don't want to say all your names because I'll probably forget someone. But you guys are like special guests and VIPs tonight. So B, Gabby, of course, Bat, President Manny, and everyone else. I think there's a few people from the beginning. Yeah. So
I'll be sure to be there. Yes, that's okay. You can do that. Bet Noir. Yes. So we're signing off. You guys enjoy your night. Thanks for hanging with us. We're out of here.
Yep. See us. Come see us next week. Good night, y'all.
Yeah. See you next week.